Hello, everyone, and welcome back to My First Mon. It's Legends Edition. I'm one of your hosts, Jack Martin, alongside the Pokemon Master, Christian Buckley.
Hello, Jack. How are you? How is everybody doing out there in America tonight? We feeling good? What's up?
I'm doing well. It's been a while since it feels like I don't know. It feels like it's been a month since we've recorded one of these. I think it's probably only been a couple weeks, but it feels like it's been forever.
Yeah, I've been itching. Like timing didn't work out. I'm a slowpoke with these games. You know this by now. Um, but I'm glad to be discussing it with you again today because this is gonna be a fun discussion, and there's a lot of points to hit, and I cannot wait for it, and I hope that it doesn't disappoint the people who are also enjoying this game. So
Likewise. Before we get into everything, we have a whole litany of things you can go back and look at. We did, I think, a couple episodes prior. We did a primer episode for this particular game and also our first impressions. And this episode is going to serve as a review and also sort of a retrospective. We were going to do two separate episodes, but I think this will be the final episode on Pokemon Legends Arceus. I feel like we don't have too much to say. That could make this into two episodes. So this will be the final episode. But if you're interested in looking back on our reviews and playthroughs and discussions on Gen 1 through 3, that is available on youtube.com/joyclicks or on podcast services of your choice. Now, Christian, before we get into our actual review of this game, we should go over some news that's happening in
yes,
the Pokemon realm. There is a Pokemon Presents this Sunday, and it seems like it's all about this game. Is that correct?
potentially. So Pokemon Day is the anniversary release in February. I believe it's the 27th. I forget what it is, but yeah, there's a 14-minute Pokemon Presents that was announced a couple days ago as of recording. We're recording this before the presentation. This will be released after the presentation. But 14 minutes, the longer Pokemon Presents for Pokemon Day, I think, are on the upper side of 25 minutes. So this one, it's not the longest one they've done, but like you said, we just had this game release just a few months ago. We had Diamond and Pearl remakes out. So I think there's a fair shot that we get to see something related to this, whether it be an update or DLC. So yeah, and obviously there's a discussion to be had with the future of Arceus and Legends as a whole that we'll get to later today. But yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you, but last episode of Legends Arceus, pending that there's no content update, that could be a discussion that is like, I'm surprised they're going this way, because we're in a new era for Pokemon now where DLC has happened. Like, just once, I think, but it was a pack. So there's a bunch of Pokemon games. Every year there's a bunch of new Pokemon games. There could be updates on a litany of things. But Pokemon Legends Arceus is potentially a likely candidate to see on Sunday. Are you hoping to see something from it?
I'd be interested to see if this game shows up, which I think it will.
Yeah.
What news would come out of it? It feels really soon for there to be DLC. That seems like a summer situation. I think this will be more of a pat on the back situation. Talk about like, hey, thanks for everyone. Thank everyone for playing, and say like, hey, maybe stay tuned later this year for more news about this game. I think we get a Pokemon Sleep announcement, Christian.
Pokemon Sleep died in its sleep, I believe. Yeah. I think that game is gone. I think the concept was interesting, and trust me, Jack, I'm probably broken because I would have probably tried to have a normal sleep schedule for that game. But it's dead and buried. I don't think that's gonna be a thing that comes out.
Yeah,
or shows up again.
Yeah, so like what you said, this is only 15 minutes. So how substantial can we actually be with the discussion about that game? Like, it would be really, really interesting if maybe they had DLC planned in advance for this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I'm not sure I see DLC happening right now. I totally see that happening few months from now, but for them to talk about DLC right now, it seems very soon.
Sure. I think there could be a reality where they announce, because Pokemon Company, like we've discussed plenty of times, they operate slightly removed from Nintendo, right? And Nintendo just had their direct that lined up most everything up to their summer, and Pokemon historically slots into the fall spot. So I could see them announce like, hey, we have a DLC coming and it's out in November. We'll show more of it at E3. Because I remember last year for the Pokemon Presents, they showed Arceus at that thing. So that was like a year plus removed. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I think that could show up here. In addition to this, for you as a Pokemon fan, what like dream scenario do you think could happen to get you excited for out of this presentation?
Before I answer that, when was Sword and Shield was the last mainline Pokemon, right?
Yes, that was 2019, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the. Actually, it might have been 2018 with Sword and Shield.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I thought 2019. I think 2019.
No, you're right. You're right. I always get confused because the DLC came out the following year, and I forgot that it came out during the pandemic year.
So would it be too wild to think another mainline Pokemon would show up here? Like, what is the release window typically? Like, how long between mainline Pokemon games?
So, I think it's varied depending on systems in the past. Like the 3DS had a remake and 2 new generations. The DS had a remake and 2 new generations. The Game Boy Advance had a remake and 1 new generation, and OG Game Boy had the 2. So Switch, they're saying it's halfway through its life cycle. There's a lot of Pokemon games on the Switch right now. I think we'll probably see a new generation on Switch, but I don't think it's this year. And personally, I don't go with the people that think that there has to be a new Pokemon game in the fall, because this is that. This is the one. And I believe they would do an expansion because the expansion sold very, very well for Sword and Shield, and I imagine it would for this one too. So
Yeah, I honestly have very little expectations for Sunday. Like, I really am not even sure what to anticipate.
Sure.
So yeah, again, I think it'll be mostly like sort of general things. Like, I don't know if we're gonna get huge announcements. Yeah. So what are you sort of thinking for Sunday?
I think the biggest thing in terms of new stuff would maybe be DLC for this game, or maybe a Platinum expansion for Diamond and Pearl, just to work in some of the story stuff from Platinum. Or my hope is that we just recently heard from Nintendo that they're shuttering the Wii U and 3DS eShops, and as of right now, the only way to legally purchase and own and play and get Pokemon from these games in the ecosystem up to the Switch games is Red and Blue and Yellow and Crystal and Gold and Silver. Those are only available on that eShop, and that will be gone in a year. So an announcement that either they're coming to the eShop or they're bringing Game Boy and Game Boy Color to the Switch service, like something on that level of an announcement, I think I'd be super excited for, because I think sometime around, I think it was 2016, it was the Pokemon Go year. The Pokemon Presents that year was, hey everybody, we're bringing the original games to an eShop, and nobody ever thought that would happen, but they did it. So fingers crossed that's another news drop this weekend.
That would be amazing. Nintendo loves to make a good case, and this is more of a Nintendo thing, not a Pokemon thing. Nintendo loves to make a good case for people to pirate their games, like, and emulate their games.
Well, listen, Pokemon is on that list, trust me.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, in general.
Yeah.
Obviously, Pokemon's
Sure.
on that list because Nintendo consoles are really the only place you can play them, the mainline ones at least. So I think that would be fantastic. Like, wouldn't it have been so much easier if you and I could have played Gen 1 through 3 on our Switches? Like,
Yeah,
That would have
dude.
been amazing. We wouldn't have to go through like the 1,000 loops to actually play the game.
Yeah.
And it was that's one of the reasons why I really like Legends Arceus is I can actually enjoy it on the Switch, not through
Yeah.
nefarious means. So, it'd be really cool if they just poured all the games to the Switch. Because imagine how much money that would make for like to have all of the generations available on the
Mm-hmm.
Switch. Like it makes so much money.
Yeah,
So
and maybe it's naive, but on the 3DS eShop at least, each game is $10. So like, I'm not saying they put a collection out because I feel like that would not be their move. They probably just roll it out slowly. But yeah, man, if it's either an announcement of the Game Boy libraries are coming to the subscription service, which I'd also be super excited for. Pokemon leading that charge would be super cool. But yeah, that's where my hopes are at right now. I think, like I said, the more likely thing is we'll probably hear a content update or a free update coming in the spring or a DLC for Legends Arceus for the fall. I'd place a bet on that, I think.
okay. If Nintendo has a hand in it, I think we'll see a collection that will only be available for a certain amount of time, and then
Sure.
never available again. But I don't think that'll happen. So
Uh,
yeah,
Before we move on from just general Pokemon stuff, I did want to say this. I'm going to show this to the camera. Sorry, audio listeners. I found this in a closet in my house that I was cleaning out the other day. Uh, Original, I don't know what generation of card print this is, but I have a Mewtwo Pokemon card that I found.
whoa, that very cool.
Yeah, it's probably not worth anything. It's from the 90s, so yeah, maybe this is early, but yeah, very cool. A slight hologram on the background of that thing. I'm trying to get a good shot of it so you can see it when you edit this. But
What are the stats? Like, do they have like a star rating? I'm very, very much not familiar with Pokemon cards.
dude, we should try and learn the Pokemon card game because I don't know it either.
That seems
But
difficult. That seems really difficult.
what, from what I'm aware of, it's basically like Magic, which I played a couple rounds of, but I'm bad at.
Okay.
But so it has 60 HP.
Mm-hmm.
It's Psychic type. Um, it's listed here as the genetic Pokemon. It is. This is an odd way to phrase it. Its length is 6 feet 7 inches.
Okay.
Its weight 269 pounds.
All right.
It's got 2 moves on it. Psychic, which does 10 damage plus 10 more damage for each energy card attached to the defending Pokemon. As well as Barrier, which is a discard move. Discard 1 Psychic energy card attached to Mewtwo in order to prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to Mewtwo during your opponent's next turn. Weak to Psychic. And we got a little Pokedex entry. A scientist created this Pokemon after years of horrific gene splicing and DNA engineering experiments. Level 53, Pokemon number 150.
Wow. That's
So.
cool. That's a really cool find. Like, especially Mewtwo of all the Pokemon that you could have found.
Yeah. This is a treasure.
Now, as far as you're aware, do you know if, like, are there multiple iterations of Mewtwo cards? Like, you just listed off, like, the 2 moves. Could there be another Pokemon, or another, Pokemon card with Mewtwo that has different moves?
Honestly, I have no idea because I truly, my entire life, have never played a game of the Pokemon card game, but I have a binder full of them somewhere because I just liked collecting them because they were Pokemon. And I have no idea. I don't even think I have any duplicates, or if I did, I probably traded them. So I don't know if the moves are different. So
Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, that's a cool find.
I wouldn't be surprised though. That would be a good way to get people to keep buying.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I'm thinking. Like, you find a Pikachu card with Thunderbolt and, like, Quick Attack, and a different one with, like, Tackle and, like, Thunder
Yeah.
or something like that, you know?
So
Well, that's cool. Great find. I'm interested to see that on the video version.
yes.
But let's, I suppose, dive into our review of this game. Now, I think maybe the best way of starting this, I suppose, is just doing, like, general thoughts of the game so far. I know we kind of already did that in the first impressions, but now since we've both beaten it, and that's true, right? You've rolled credits on this game?
Yes. So I got the credits ending. I haven't gotten the true post game ending.
Okay, same. So we both got
Yeah.
credits. Let's start with you, Christian. What do you think of this game overall?
I truly love this game. Um, a lot of what I felt and said in our impressions episode still holds true. In the last, once I got to and spoilers are on now.
Yes.
Okay. Once I got to the snow area, which is like the last major location you go to that's like a new area to discover, I kind of stopped doing the side quests I was getting, so a lot of them did pile up for me in my log. So like if I pulled it up right now, there's probably like 20 that I haven't completed, and I never had more than like 8 that weren't done in my log throughout my rest of the playthrough. So the reason for that though is that because I think the story had me so hooked that I just wanted to see how it was going to conclude. I had ideas obviously because I'm familiar with the legendary Pokemon at play in this game, but yeah, the story I think really is what surprised me. And I I feel the exact same way I did about the gameplay, where it's a great loop. I love all the systems that play here. I don't really have many complaints that aren't on a technical level, and even then, it's so close to a dream game that I don't want to be too nitpicky with it, despite the very obvious shortcomings it has. But the thing that really shocked me is that I'm curious to hear how you feel about this, because this is your first Pokemon game that has I'd say a legit story. I was stunned that you got kicked out of the village and everyone was being an asshole to you. I was like, we're doing this and we're going through with it. I'm shunned and I can't go back there for like the last stretch of this game. That surprised the hell out of me. So yeah, big fan. Story surprised me, and I still love it. I think I put it like a 9.5 on it on my Twitter thread.
Oh wow, high praise. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this game, and it might be one of my, if not my favorite Pokemon experiences so far. Like I said last time with like gameplay and everything and the systems, I think that's probably my favorite part of this game. I love the loop of actually like going through and finding Pokemon and hunting them and filling out the Pokedex entries for them. I think that is so much fun, and I hope that continues further. As for the story, which, yeah, now we can get into, I agree. I really enjoyed that sort of twist in the game, because like you're sort of curing these noble Pokemon, and after you do it, you get that point where like the sky turns red. You think the game's about to be over, and then that happens, and then you're kicked out of the village. And it's like, wow, this is something I did not anticipate. And I thought that was really interesting. For me, in general, though, I don't really care for the story. I don't care for any story in Pokemon, I've realized. I think it's sort of just the venue to convey, or the venue to actually, like, experience the gameplay in that. Like, there's a lot of games like that where story's just kind of there to get you from point A to point B. And it's kind of the same in this. I did appreciate the twist, I guess like 3/4 of the way through, where you are kicked out of the village and you have to go go to like the different lakes and get the red chain or whatever, and then at the end you like defeat the big bad Pokemon. But yeah, it's not something that was like gripping by any means, but I did enjoy it for what it was, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you have the clear vision here, absolutely, because after so many Pokemon games that do feel like going through the motions with the story, where it's like, enemy team, they want this legendary, you catch it instead, you save them, you beat the people, they realize they're wrong, and then you go on to finish the game. The moment where they kick you out, it felt like it had teeth. Even if it's like little baby teeth that like are gonna fall out at some point. It's more effort out of a Pokemon story to surprise the player than I've seen in quite some time. So,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely different than, it felt kind of cookie cutter from definitely Gen 1 and 2. I mean, 1, it's setting up, it's very basic, that's fine.
Yeah.
2, felt very similar.
Yeah.
I enjoyed 3's story. It was very
Mm-hmm.
like simple, as I mentioned like during our episodes on that, but I did enjoy it for what it was worth. And
Mm-hmm.
this was certainly very different. And I hope they continue this type of storytelling going forward. It's very basic, like you're not getting anything like too gripping, or like the writing's not amazing or anything like that. But um, this is a podcast game to me, and for this to have the story that it did, I enjoyed, but it wasn't anything that, like, my takeaway from this game is not from the story, it's from the
Sure.
gameplay experiences, like it is for lots of
Yeah.
games. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't come away from Skyrim really that interested in the story. I enjoy it and all that, but it is really like the encounters along the way. It's, for me, it's the systems that play in this game, and spending time like actually going through and doing the Pokedex and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I'm focused on with this game, and I think that nails it very well. And the story is fine as it is. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
bad by any means, but it's
Yeah.
nothing I am going to really remember. And I honestly had to
Sure.
read through like a summary of the story because it's been a couple weeks, and I'm like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the story. Forgot about that.
Yeah, and I think like as a narrative, it's very basic. I think it's more so. I think it's the way they treat your player, right? Because we talked about this a lot. You had this to say also very early in Pokemon Blue, how it's like everybody's obsessed with Pokemon, and like you're just this godly 10-year-old that everybody thinks is the best thing ever, right? For the most part. Um, and in here, it felt like we ended on that point for sure, but it felt more like it was for me at least, it felt more like they were making you feel like you had to earn it in a way where, and maybe it's because I was doing a lot of side quests and I was getting that flavor text of villagers that were like, hey, we don't trust you still, and I sure don't trust Pokemon. But then by the end of their quest line, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna change, maybe, but you showed me something, And that, I think that builds up when we reach that ending. That is like the 15-year-old saved everything. You're a god, as opposed to just everybody being like, oh yeah, you're the best thing that we've ever seen in this town, kid.
Yeah.
So
A lot of a lot of the points of the story that I enjoy are just sort of the interactions with
yeah.
the characters. Not that they're 3-dimensional by any means. They're very
Mm-hmm.
much like caricatures, but
Yeah.
I did like sort of visiting the characters here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they felt like more like tangible characters than than previous Pokemon games. It is probably
Mm-hmm.
largely because I'm seeing them in like an actual like 3-dimensional setting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a sense of what they actually look like compared to like the sprites or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I do still wish there was like voice acting and things like that. I think that could have gone
Yeah.
a long way to make
Mm-hmm.
this story feel a little bit more fleshed out. So that's something I'm hoping to see in the future.
I I agree with you, and I think that was the other thing I wanted to bring up. The characters, like, I think it has a very charming cast, despite most of them being, for the most part, what you see is what you get. Like, I like that you have your little, after a big story moment, you get your fun dinner scene with your, I guess, quote unquote rival and the professor. I like the camaraderie they have. Specifically, out of the core cast, I really like. I'm blanking on their name, but your commanding officer with the blue hair,
Oh, yep.
who helps you like when you get banished. And then, I I'm kind of surprised, even though I kind of saw it coming, that Kamada, the commander,
Yep.
that he was the antagonist, because he's out here leading this colonization effort and turns on you, and then you have to fight him. I thought that was cool. For you, I teased this before, but there are some connections to Gen 4 games. Team Galactic is the Team Rocket of Gen 4.
Okay.
So, and they have the same logo as the Galaxy Survey Corps team.
Oh, so that was like the precursor, in, in a way, seemingly.
To a degree, yes. So like I had like the seed somewhere in my mind that it was like, is are we the baddies? You know, like
Mm.
that's what I had going into this, and not necessarily, but I did like that there was that subtle sort of twist where the commander was sort of a boss for you. I liked that.
Okay. And how about Diamond and Pearl? Are those clans like still present in Diamond and Pearl the games?
No, what's really cool is there's a statue in God, I forget what town it is. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same town as the village that like Jubilife. But there's a town that has a statue of a legendary Pokemon, and it has features of both Dialga and Palkia. And I think it originated in the manga that people were like, "It's why is it like a hybrid? What is this?" And then I think in the games, or maybe it was in Platinum, they were like, "Hey, yeah, so this statue exists because we have no solid answer of to what this legendary Pokemon looked like."
Hmm.
So that one tiny detail in a weird sprite from a DS game in 2006, I think was the reason they had the Diamond and Pearl clans, which I think is a very cool touch, and there were a lot of things like that in this game.
Yeah, that's cool. So I guess also comparing this to other games, specifically Gen 1 through 3, but also for you for other Pokemon games you've experienced, how do you think this story stacks up to the stories told in those experiences?
I think it's the most interesting story, probably. I do have a soft spot for Red and Blue and any version of the remakes, I think, because specifically with the Game Boy version, it's so stripped down that it's just like your story is your adventure, and it's the story you make, the partners you choose, and your success or losses and struggle points in the game is the narrative, essentially. I think the Pokemon formula story that we get to see in Emerald is basically everything after that. Which one do you prefer the backdrop of? So I think compared to the Pokemon games I have played, which to reiterate, I haven't played 5 or 6 for those generations. I do think that the story here is the most interesting out of them all, even if I still have a nostalgia for the Red and Blue hands-off story. So, but what about you so far?
I think 3 stands out to me when I'm thinking back of the stories. 2 sort of fades into the background, and 1 is very basic, but it's memorable. This I enjoy, and I think it is largely because of the sort of twists halfway through or 3/4 of the way through the game.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to help me remember the actual story of this. I don't remember like any, like, I'm not going to really remember any like the Diamond and Pearl squabbles or like any of the specificities on the like actual noble Pokemon themselves, or like the rationale behind needing to capture the Pokemon at the end of the game or anything like that. But yeah, I do enjoy the story for like what this was, I suppose. It like I wasn't
Sure.
And I think like for people listening or watching this being like, yeah, of course it's not going to be a story like any crazy story. This is a Pokemon game. And like that's totally what I was expecting. And I'm not like disappointed or anything, but I think it's worth mentioning that it's like, yeah, of course like the story's not going to draw me in, but it is the gameplay of it. And the gameplay of this, if we could segue, is I think the most memorable gameplay of any Pokemon experience I've had so far. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of memorable, right? Like I've had an entire lifetime on
Right.
those older systems, so I do think because of that, though, this one will always stand out to me as the landmark moment for Pokemon, right? Where I'm sure they will use these systems in future games. They will probably be drastically improved in future games. However, like, I don't necessarily care much about the gameplay in Emerald, but I have very vivid memories of the gameplay in the Red and Blue remake, which is the same kind of gameplay. You know, it's just like a different approach to it with different backdrops, because that's Pokemon's thing for the most part. So I think in the future I'll always look back fondly on this one because it was the first to do it. But yeah, I still have a soft spot for the classic formula with the earlier games, I think. But I cannot lie or I would be lying if I said that this isn't a way more enjoyable way to navigate a Pokemon game. And the battle system as well, I liked a lot, especially towards the back few hours of the game. So yeah, I really love the way the gameplay works in this.
Yeah, me too. To me, this is kind of just the Pokemon game that I want. Like
Yeah.
I like battles and all that. I think there's a point in Pokemon games, like Pokemon mainline games, where battling becomes like so like annoying at a certain point where you're kind of just bombarded constantly, and that's really the only gameplay mechanic in that
Yeah.
game. Like there's obviously you're managing a bunch of different stuff in that, but yeah, battling is the main focus in that, and it gets very repetitive. Where like you're introducing, obviously you can catch Pokemon in those games, but it's just not as clearly not as fun as it is in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like having more of a focus on the Pokedex is much more interesting, and having the battle system there is great. But you can also like it's also not like the main focus. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the gameplay focuses in this are much more split, and I think that makes for a better experience. So for me,
Yeah.
this is I think the most fun Pokemon game I've played. Um, and I'm interested to hear what you think of how this gameplay should be adapted going forward, because I think we're still going to get
Sure.
a split of mainline generations of Pokemon, but also
Mm-hmm.
Legends Pokemon. But I'm curious what you think, like how you think this gameplay will start to influence um, mainline Pokemons going forward.
Yeah, so it's tricky because I'm still very curious to see how Pokemon Company moving forward addresses Legends, right? Because there was that sort of up in the air thing of is it mainline, is it not? But Legends does feel like an evolution of a mechanic in Sword and Shield called the Wild Area, where it's a big open field, you have a right analog stick, it's fully 3D. There are Pokemon you see in the world. You do battle them, but it's slightly different from the fluidity that we have here. And there's no option to just try and throw a Pokeball at them, right? So historically, sometimes Pokemon has done some things that are really cool that just get buried with the next release. I'm sure you've heard of Mega Evolution from your time online.
Maybe that's different from Dynamax Pokemon.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
don't know if I've heard of Mega Evolution.
okay, so Mega Evolution essentially it was in X and Y on the 3DS and the remake of um, Gen 3. But essentially, you have an orb that is very specific for one of your Pokemon, and if you level them up fully, not like level 100, but like if you evolve them to their final stage, during battle, if you have that good relationship with that Pokemon, you can use that item to give them a fourth, usually fourth, sometimes second evolution that's just temporary for that battle, and it has different stats and stuff like that. And people really love that. I was never into it, but every time there's a new Pokemon game that doesn't have it, which has been every Pokemon game since like 2014, people are upset. So I wouldn't put it past them to abandon this, but I do think that this is a turning point. The way that I don't know if we'll ever get a normal 3D Zelda again. Like, I think there's a place for classic Zelda, and it will be in 2D games. The way that moving forward with Pokemon, I think remakes will be that classic formula. And moving forward, the next generation will integrate most of these systems, but maybe try and retrofit it to have the gyms be the regional things rather than the nobles. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a lot that I still want from this type of game.
Yes.
Like I said last episode, I just want like a bigger RPG version of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it felt like an RPG light, even
Yeah.
like I felt like this game could have been more dense, and it would have been like a really interesting experience. And like this was, I think I clocked in around 26 hours at the end of the day for this. And I feel like if this was like a meaty RPG, like a meaty like 50 to 100-hour RPG, but
Mm.
Pokemon focused, that's sort of what I really want out of a Pokemon game. I'm not sure if that is in a Legends game or if that is in a mainline game that just adapts a similar format and marries that to the 8 gym situation, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is entirely possible. Like imagine 8 different regions with their own gym, but also with their own like Wilds Land or something like that, with a bunch of
Sure.
different
Yeah.
side quests. Like I think that is the type of experience I would want. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this format will continue in Legends sequels going forward, but I hope mainline games adopt this style of gameplay as well, because I think it's really
Yeah.
interesting and it's much more engaging than just the battle system.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, they're building towards that, right? Where the wild area in Sword and Shield, like I said, was the precursor to this entire game with its regions. And even within the DLC, they added a few more wild areas, and in the DLC wild areas, they had like more things to do there than just being an open field. So I'm with you. I would love to see them have the regions be towns or cities like we get in our normal playthroughs of Pokemon games. Uh, I don't know how soon that will be. That feels like it would need to be a Switch 2 type thing based off of just limitations. But yeah, at the very least, I think Legends will continue as a banner with these mechanics. Um, and I'm very curious to see how it sells in the long run, right? Because there's one version of this. It is clearly higher priority than the Diamond and Pearl remakes in terms of Game Freak. Does this lead them to a path where they treat it as mainline now and they don't do dual releases? I don't know. Do they start doing dual releases? I don't know either, but I'm with you. I think that there's an endless well for what they did here, and I don't think we'll see the end of it anytime soon.
No, and whichever way they go, I think the sequel of this game is going to be absolutely fantastic. Like I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot to learn, and a lot to implement to improve this formula, and
Mm-hmm.
that has me very excited.
So I want to ask you then, as somebody who has played 3 generations,
Mm-hmm.
this is essentially, from a certain point of view, I guess it's a remake, kind of, because you have a lot of the Pokedex. There's stuff beyond Gen 4 in here, but it's centralized around Ancient Sinnoh.
Mm-hmm.
So out of Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn for Gens 1, 2, 3, if the next Legends game were to be adapting one of them in a similar sort of ancient first like growing civilization village sort of thing here, which one would be the most enticing for you to see?
Okay, I'll start off by saying I think this environment
Mm-hmm.
may be the ugliest environment so far, um, because it obviously is in a 3D environment, but it is very ugly. It's not very graphically appealing. I loved playing this game at like the evening time where like there was a sunset, so it's like okay, well at least the sun and the skybox is good to look at. Everything else is like very questionable.
I will defend nighttime also. I think nighttime has some good scenery.
Sure, as long as you can't see textures, that's great.
Sure. Sure.
That being said, I really love Hoenn. I think the switch to what was it, the GBA?
Yes.
Okay. The switch to the GBA hardware, I think, did so much for that game. And for me personally, I think everything in that game looks absolutely beautiful, and I would love to explore that in a 3D environment. Same with Kanto. Obviously, I think it has the most potential to be like, what does this actually look like in a 3D environment? Like where I can actually go and explore these different regions that I did back in my first playthrough in 2019. So I think for me, Hoenn would be the number one. I think for a lot of people, it's probably Kanto for nostalgia vibes. Johto, I have no real disdain or love for. So when you get to it, you get to it. But for me, it would be Hoenn in Kanto.
Yeah, I think Hoenn's an interesting choice because similar to Arceus, you have with Dialga and Palkia, they are the gods of time and space. So I think the way it's worked into the narrative was interesting, and it was like it felt like a grander version of things we've seen in other games. So considering Hoenn was the beginning of that kind of, and you do have that dynamic as well between Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza as that trio of legendaries where one is the god, not god, but like one is the legendary of the sea, one is the legendary of magma and earth, and the other is like the sky. And the sky one is the one that can calm them. Like Arceus was the one that had you calm the other two. I think that type of setting could work pretty seamlessly as a follow up to this, and be interesting because you have all those ancient things throughout Hoenn. I think there were some ruins that we got to explore in those games, and that big desert area. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think that would be probably the more interesting thing to do out of the three we played. I am the one who wants to see Kanto next, mainly because I think with the lore they get into with Arceus being God, I'm curious to see how they would tell the story of like Mew without it being focused on Mewtwo, because I feel like Mew has never really gotten the spotlight. It's always been Mewtwo, which was created in whenever the Challenger existed. So
Right. Yeah. Of any of the other generations, do you have a generation or a region that you want to have the Legends treatment aside from Kanto?
So it's a tricky question because I've only experienced 7 and 8 beyond this one.
Okay.
7 is interesting because it's a bunch of islands. Like it's supposed to be Hawaii.
Oh, right.
And like Pacific Islands. So that could be cool. Like each individual island from Sun and Moon is its own region that we have here. That could be interesting. And that game as well, like with its setting, I feel like the characters in the world has its own distinct culture that could be interesting to see a more ancient version of. Sword and Shield, it's the UK. I'm not too interested in seeing ancient UK in Pokemon because we got that vibe kind of with the Galaxy team because apparently that's where they came from. So I think I'm good on Sword and Shield Gen 8. I would like to maybe see Gen 7. And I'm sure there'd be a case for 5 and 6 as well because I think 6 is supposed to be Paris.
Oh.
And 5 is America. So that could be cool too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely want to see some more Legends treatments of those regions. So, yeah, hopefully we get that. But let's get into the rankings, Christian. Do you have a rankings prepared?
I don't, but I can vomit one out for you.
Okay. Do you want me to go first so you can have some time?
I'll just go with my heart.
Yeah. Go for it.
So Crystal's last. Crystal's in 4th place.
Mm-hmm. And this is a my first mon ranking. The ones we played. Okay.
Yes. Not ranking Sun and Moon here because Sun and Moon would. Yeah, Sun and Moon would probably go below Crystal.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah, so Crystal's in 4th place. Then I would say. Might be a bit controversial, but I think Emerald will be third. Then Red. No, sorry. Wait. Yes. Crystal, Pokemon Emerald, then Arceus, then Red, I think. Because Red, again, was like one of the first games I ever played, and it's iconic. I have very few issues with that game. Uh, Emerald is not even. Emerald's like top. I mean, yeah, it's top three for me overall, and here as well. But yeah, Arceus is just a very special game that I never thought I'd get. So it's up there for me. It's number two right now out of the ones you played.
Yeah, I mean that's great. Like, it climbed through the rankings kind of surprisingly, and it's up there for me too. Like my number four is Crystal, then Blue, then Emerald. They might be tied honestly in my mind, but I'm gonna have Emerald at the number two spot, and then Arceus is number one. Arceus is the type of Pokemon experience I really want that I didn't really know I wanted until I had it. I really like the big open aspect of it. I wish it was a little bit more dense, and I wish it was a bigger RPG, but the bones of this game are so great, and I really am interested in future games like improving on that and making it a little bit beefier. If the future games were just this over and over and over again, I'd be less interested, but I'm hopeful that there are going to be some major improvements. But Christian, I'm curious like how this game came up to be so high in your rankings. Like, was it the freshness of it? Was it this like a new spin on Pokemon that you were like, yes, I want this? Is that why it's up there for you?
Yeah, it's both, honestly. Where I think it was the surprise too, where when it was announced, I lost my mind. And then as we got closer to it, I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to play it, like we talked about. So the surprise of how much I enjoyed it, in addition to how close it is to the game I thought I was playing when I was 5 with my Game Boy Color. And it's very fresh. It's doing things that I never would have expected Game Freak to do in a game, like, ever, in terms of just feeling like it's trying to be modern with a lot of its sensibilities. I think it's all those reasons. It's a big combination of all that. And again, no disrespect to specifically Emerald, because Emerald I think is a great game, and if I were to recommend anybody to play a Pokemon game as their first one, I would probably say Emerald as an option. But yeah, out of the ones we played, I can't dethrone Red, but Arceus gets close with its ambition to my nostalgia for Red. I think they kind of evens out a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard. I had difficulty putting Emerald above Blue even because Blue was my first and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Arceus is just so different and it stands out against other Pokemon games. And you've had more experience with Pokemon, and it's clear that this is like a much different experience that takes some familiar aspects, but also adds some new elements that I think are much needed in the Pokemon series at this point.
Sure. Yeah. I want to ask you also. I don't know if I'm aware of this. What was your team you ended up using, like in the end, like your final crew that you rocked with for the majority?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Let me just get it out here. I have my Switch in front of me. So, Typhlosion was my dude,
Nice.
of course, level 60 at that point. Raichu was in there, level 60. Gyarados, who I caught flying around, which I thought that was like the coolest catch, seeing Gyarados like flying around. Caught with I think a feather ball in the first area. Level 58. Torterra was my dude. Caught the alpha version.
Yeah.
Big turtle guy, so I loved seeing Torterra and using him. Level 70. Graveler. Shout out to Chad Gable from I believe Emerald Crystal maybe. That was my rock and ground guy. Level 59, and then I never have a sixth Pokemon. Like,
Really?
I find difficulty really like getting a good type that I want. Like, I'm never interested in like Psychic or anything like that. I don't really like using those types of Pokemon. So I had an empty space, and then Dialga was just after I caught Dialga. That just took up that final spot. So that was my crew. What about you?
I mean, yeah. Also, how could you not with Dialga, right?
Yeah.
Like you have, like the game even like is kind of forcing you to it. Like I don't think you have. Actually, you do have to. Um, but we can get to that in a second because I want to ask you about that. So my team was a Scyther. I got a lot of Gen 1 stuff in here.
Mm-hmm.
I went Scyther, Arcanine, which Arcanine has an awesome form in this game. Arcanine has a very, very cool form that is... Like, it starts great with Growlithe even. Like, I really like the new form here. I also had a Raichu. Respect. Crobat, Spheal, and Rowlet. Rowlet I never evolved because Rowlet struck a chord with me when I saw him in the beginning of this game, and he's my ride or die now. So
I respect that a lot.
thank you. But the question I wanted to ask you, you said you put Dialga on your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that this game has for you. You are given a choice when you get banished, when you go to meet a very cool character, this like gothic lady. Great design.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, because you assisted the Diamond Pearl clans, they're like, "Hey, we'll help you out. We'll help you clear your name and finish this fight." You're given the choice to go with Adaman of the Diamond clan or Irida of the Pearl clan. So you chose Adaman then.
I did, yeah. Honestly, both characters kind of annoyed me, and Adaman just sort of annoyed me less, just ever so slightly. But what about you?
Sure. I chose Irida because a lot of it building up, because I had a feeling we were going to have to make a choice, with like decide with one at one point. I'm ride or die Pokemon Pearl over Diamond, Palkia superiority, but also like, again, they're caricatures, but like I thought Irida's story of like being this like too young to be a leader was intriguing to me, and I wanted to see if like there would be any character moment for her in the lake challenges, and there wasn't much, but yeah, that was really the reasoning. So
yeah, I think for me a large part of it was the Diamond and Pearl differential, and I opted for Diamond, and that was kind of it.
Sure, I get that, but I do like that they let you choose that, and then whatever you don't choose is the final boss. I think that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Christian, do you have any like lingering thoughts, questions, anything else before we close it out?
I still think it's nuts that this game exists. Honestly. Another character thing that I wanted to bring up earlier, but I forgot to. Like, I know these characters aren't very deep, but the potato monkey guy,
Yeah.
who's like just this fucking ninja.
That was
that was
a funny surprise.
Right? Like, it was that moment I thought that like, oh yeah, so the Galaxy team is evil, and that's the big reveal here. They're not. But I did think that was a very fun moment in that cave where he just like he has like a hunch normally, and then he does his little smoke poof, and then he's just like this grand, still elderly, but this grand ninja that you just have to fight. That was very, very fun.
Right.
I thought.
Yeah, and it was very tongue in cheek too. Like I wasn't taken very seriously.
Yeah,
the dude that's serving you the whole time. That was a good call. It was really funny.
Yeah, and I do think that despite the story being pretty basic, like we discussed, I think there's a lot of really charming moments, and Pokemon has always been just this wholesome sort of thing, and the way they use that to have like satisfying resolutions to quests and story moments is more impactful as a fan of Pokemon than any interesting narrative stuff that they could have done. But I do hope we get to explore more of the like creationism stuff in future Legends games, because I like what we saw of it here for sure.
No, it's a good call. Yeah, I think there's room to grow for sure for this series, for the sub-series, I suppose. Um, and yeah, I hope we get that soon. When do you expect we get a sequel to this?
That's a good question. I think after we get the Gen 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a chance we might get a new Let's Go at some point. Which I also think is interesting because I think Let's Go kind of led to this game as well, where Let's Go was the first Pokemon game that split up duels and catching Pokemon, where I know it turned off a lot of people when it was revealed, but when I played through it, I thought it was very refreshing because, like you were saying, having like the tedium of you get stopped so often. That was a remake of Kanto where there's Pokemon in the overworld. You can choose to engage with them or not. And similar to this game, like in that game, you don't have a choice. You just can't battle them to catch them unless they're a legendary. So, yeah, I think that we'll probably see a new Legends game. Yeah, after Gen 9 at the minimum, but I think there might be another Pokemon game in there as well before then.
Sure. No, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think we will get the next main line before this. Mm-hmm. Whatever else is in there as well, other spin-off games, and then this. But yeah, I think it's a Switch 2 game or whatever the sequel to the Switch will end up being. And hopefully that means this game looks better because that still is something at the end of the day where I wouldn't go as far to say this game's ugly, but it's not good looking. Like it's flat out just not good looking. And that's something I wish it was. I wish it was this really beautiful Pokemon experience, and it's close. And I think art style goes a long way, but I don't think they capitalize on the art style at the end of the day. At the end of the day, and this, and I think a sequel will hopefully improve that.
Yeah, I do slightly disagree where I think the art style, I really enjoy it, but I think it would, like, at a higher resolution, I think it would sing.
Yeah.
And that's just a factor of the system, you know? So, because I don't know if you've seen this, but this game has been emulated on PC.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and I think it looks better, you know, at that higher level, but I think that's a credit to the art direction, and yeah, it is unfortunate because I'm with you. I don't think it's ugly, but it's not beautiful. You know?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So, and I guess I'm curious for you too, as we wrap up, like, moving forward, do you have less of an interest in a more traditional style Pokemon game after this one? Like, do you think I know you haven't messed with spin-offs much, but like, do you think if there were to be a standard style 8-gym Pokemon game that releases within the next year or two, you'd have less of an inclination to pick it up and try it and play it because you just have tasted the nectar of the gods with this one? Like, where's your head at as a newer fan?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. This certainly opened my eyes to what I want from a Pokemon game.
Sure.
It's not to say I dislike the 8-gym system, but at a certain point now, like, I've played 3 of those games, and the idea of just doing that again is somewhat boring because it's just the same thing over and over again, which has its charm, of course. And for me, I'm more interested to see how mainline games in the future adapt these systems, and what that looks like going forward. So, like, I'm certainly interested in Gen 9, but not as interested as a sequel to this game or the perfect union of a gym system, but it's just a giant RPG similar to this game.
Yeah, I understand that, because even myself, right, like going to Diamond and Pearl, the remakes last year, I think those are really solid, good remakes. I did feel the years, though, when I was playing it, I think.
Yeah.
You know? But and maybe it's actually not a good remake, because if I picked up Platinum, who's to say I could just want to play it for 80 hours, but yeah, I kind of had the feeling that we're on a new wave with your Pokemon fandom, and I think it's warranted at this point. You know,
No, definitely.
so
So yeah, I think that'll do it for Pokemon Legends Arceus. Christian, like what you said, maybe there will be some news to discuss. I'm not sure like how much it's gonna be, but I'm sure if there's DLC for this game, we will cover that in the future. But we're not entirely sure about that at the moment. But
yeah,
it's certainly possible we'll return to this game, which is exciting.
absolutely.
Yeah, and until then, Christian, where can people find you?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch at Chun2D2, youtube.com/joyclicks. If you're watching the video version of the show, you can also check out Jack and I's other show, Excelsior, a show that is mostly dedicated to Marvel's Avengers. It's been a lot of MCU and just Marvel as a whole lately. New episodes of that come out every Saturday, so if you want more of us in the meantime, in these Pokemon gaps, you can check us out there. And yeah, other stuff up there as well occasionally. But Jack, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Twitter, on Twitter at Fascinated Jack, and yeah, like what Christian was saying, we also have Excelsior. It's a whole bunch of other stuff on JoyClicks for you to check out. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, thank you very much for everyone for listening. This has been a great experience. Greatly enjoyed this game, and I'm curious to see what you all think in the comments below. So yes, thank you all very much. This series, I think, will return precisely when it needs to paraphrase Gandalf.
Sure. Yeah, because like I think now as well, and I'm saying this in the recording because I'm curious what people would think of this. We did a mini season dedicated to a spin-off. You know, I'm using air quotes for all these things. There's a lot of other Pokemon games that you might have an interest in. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, yeah, there's the Let's Go. I don't even know what those games look like. There's a Let's Go Pokemon games. There's Pokemon Go itself, which, can you believe I never played? I'm so stupid.
That's baffling. That's wild.
I'm so stupid. Why would I never do that? Like, that literally took over the entire world, and I never played it.
Jack, there's also this wonderful world of fan games called Pokemon ROM hacks that get, like, I played the beginning of one of them. You have wonderful choices as a player character. You can choose to kill an NPC if you want. You can deal with some cults. Like, it's messed up. It's weird. I've never fully committed to one, but there's so much more to Pokemon than it's still in its infancy, your fandom. But there's a lot of things out there. I'll just leave it at that. That's all I'll say.
That is fascinating.
So, yeah.
But yeah, that has been my first Mon for Pokemon Legends Arceus. We've greatly enjoyed it. We're, I think, both very excited about the future of Pokemon in general, but also of this series. So yes, thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll catch you later.